what's going on? Of course, I am Amira Blaze, and I want to welcome you guys to Bookshade. So for today's episode, guys, this is an introduction to Bookshade, and I'm gonna be using the BookTube Newbie tag. Okay, so I'm not gonna waste any time. Let's get down to business. So the first question is, why did you start this channel? So the reason why I started Bookshade, this program, is because I really feel when it comes to the romance book genre, it gets overlooked. There's a lot of stereotypes to it, such as like trashy romance novels. It's seen as very primitive, you know, unless you're reading like historical romance, then like people kind of, you know, give you a little more respect that way. But there's a lot more to it than the trashy romance novel. So with Bookshade, what I try to do, guys, is I'm gonna be focusing on covering paranormal romance. I cover a lot of the subgenre of romance that's called like vampire romance. Huge stan of vampire romances. I also talk about interracial romance. That's something that doesn't get talked a lot in regards to the BookTube community. Like ever so often when there's like maybe like a cultural like month or something like that, it gets talked about. But I really want to kind of if I can change the narrative of those particular subgenres, because they get misunderstood a lot. And just recently I got into historical fiction, so we'll talk about historical fiction ever so often, because like nobody talks about it, like rarely at all. So I feel it's a genre that can be appreciated as well. And then also webtoons, I mean, they're really great. These web comics have really like solid artwork, solid storylines, and that's what I also will be excuse me here, that's what I'll also be covering here on the program as well. So next question is, what are some fun and unique things that you can bring to BookTube? I would have to say I am very opinionated. I do not hold back. If I feel that a book that, you know, I am reviewing sucks, I'm gonna say it. I don't care like I don't care what, you know, I don't care what anybody thinks. Okay, I think it's really important that when it comes to especially the romance book genre, sometimes like, and this is just something I noticed, sometimes we hold back because it's like we don't want to you know, we don't want to make people mad because maybe that's their favorite book series. But for me, I think that brings perspective when you are taking that time to critique it and to give a different perspective. I don't care if it's a smaller series or a popular series, you guys will not get any bullshit here. I will let you know how I feel. I also do things like, for example, I'll be doing what are called like readathon marathons, where I pick like a readathon and then I take the rules of it and apply it to my TBR. So I do, you know, things that are a little bit different. I also have a segment on Bookshade called Books and Video Games. So for example, I'll be playing The Witcher, and The Witcher is based off of the book series that's done by Andrzej Sapkowski. But most importantly, bringing that multicultural perspective, I personally feel is what makes my show unique, is because a lot of times, you know, and I call my audience alternative adult book snobs, because for me, I am such a I'm into a lot of alternative subcultures, like, you know, I listen to a lot of like metal music and things like that, and a lot of times people of color, like, we don't always get recognized for that. So I think that's something that I can bring that's unique, is not only my perspective, my very over-the-top sense of humor, and my unapologetic opinions, because I think it's really time that, you know, and it's happened. I've seen it in the BookTube community, but not the way that I do it. Okay, not to be like that, but you know what I mean. Okay, so I'm so sorry, guys. I have like allergies. It's so bad. But on to the next question here. It says, what are you most excited for about this new channel? I'm just like excited to create a show. Like I said, Bookshade is a show for adults, and giving that adult perspective to the BookTube community, I think is a perspective that is greatly overlooked, and especially my perspective as a alternative book snob. I think intellectualism with alternative subcultures, it doesn't always cross over. So that's what I'm really excited is to see how the BookTube community takes to this type of show. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting. So next we have, why do you love reading? For me, I'm a reading stan. Like, guys, reading allowed me to express myself in ways where I couldn't express myself because people could not accept who I am culturally, and reading just allowed me to feel freedom that I don't get to feel sometimes as a person of color. And reading allows you to be liberated. It allows you to, read on so many vast different hobbies and interests. It allows you to expand your mind. So I would say those are some of the reasons why I like to read. It's my life. I always say that reading is a part of my lifestyle, and when you read if you're like a serious reader, it really does become a part of your lifestyle. So I would say that's why I love reading. So excuse me here. So next we have here, what questions would you ask your favorite booktubers? This one I can't fully answer because I don't really know a lot of booktubers. Like, I'm still new, or I don't know, maybe people just don't like me. I know, sad, but no, I can't really answer that because it's like I'm still kind of learning the community. So maybe in the future I might do like a revisited to this and see how my perspectives have changed when I'm involved in the BookTube community a little bit more. But on to the next here, we have, what challenges do you think starting a BookTube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I think for me the hardest challenge is maybe just people accepting me as a multicultural booktuber. I think that's going to be a challenge because with what's been going on currently, that's been kind of a challenge. People just don't know how to take, black booktubers or other booktubers of other ethnicities, because this is something that, it's been, from my research, it's been of BookTube, it's been addressed here and there, but this is like the first time that it's really, really being addressed. So I think that's going to be a challenge, is because, like I said, as a person of color, I have a very interesting perspective to the romance genre that doesn't always get talked about. So I think maybe for some people, I will probably, they'll probably be like mad at me or, not like what I have to say. But sometimes, as a critic, you have to be that person that gives a different perspective in order for people to understand over time. But the thing that I always strive for is I always do it in an intellectual, respectful way. Like, when I give my opinions, it's not meant to be disrespectful. It's just I'm a very straightforward kind of person. So I would say that'll probably be the first challenge. I think the other challenge too is I specialize in such a specific like subgenres, like paranormal romance. I'm not always covering like general romance. So I do cover historical romance because of historical fiction, but they're like two different things though. But yeah, that's gonna be the challenge, is that I'm not like a romantic book generalist, which is something that's more common in regards to the BookTube romance community. So I think that's going to be a challenge, is people kind of getting used to my style of reviews and my strong opinions. All right, so next we have, when did you start reading? For me, I didn't really seriously start reading until I got to to college because I just did not have the time. It was something that I wanted to do, but I just didn't have the time to do it. But once I got to college and I had more free time, oh my gosh, I just went crazy, started buying books left and right. You know, my parents are like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." So that's when I probably started. And then next coinciding that is, where do you read? So there's so many places that I do read. So I would have to say I read a lot in my room, because right now the temperature is way too hot. Okay, you can see me sweating. Okay, I am sweating biscuits right now. So I do read inside my room with my fam. I also read a lot of like audio books too, because of the convenience that I can, you know, listen to it, you know, anywhere that I'm at. Also, when it cools down, oh my gosh, I love to just get a blanket, sit outside and just read, or, you know, do some artwork or whatnot. So I would have to say those are like my favorite places. Anywhere cool right now, okay, in temperature, I like to read, okay? And then final question here is, what kind of books do you like to read? So I did mention that throughout the tag, but let me make sure I'm being specific so that you're aware about what my show is about, okay? I'm just saying, okay? So I really like to read the following. So I recently, you know, got into a little bit of historical romance. It's still an acquired taste for me. I do read some mainstream romance authors, but for me, I try to stay away from it because I really want to encourage more reading of, like, having a balance of the mainstream with the more independent authors, because a lot of these independent authors, they write just as well and sometimes even better than some of the mainstream authors that I'm into. So I read a lot of, like I said before, vampire romance, historical romance. I just started with. I also love reading, like I said, webtoons and historical fiction. But I also recently started reading memoirs because or anything revolving around learning about, like, another thing I like reading about is journalism. I just find the whole field of journalism really interesting, and also reading about criticism, because being a critic, like I said, you're always seen as being a bad person, but you're just giving your opinion. You're not telling people, you know, how to think or act. You're just giving your opinion. So I love reading criticism and opinion pieces, because it's just so interesting how people, you know, take time out of their day to do very extensive research and then come to, like, interesting conclusions as well. So yeah, that's it, guys. That is the BookTube Newbie tag and the introduction to Bookshade. Now, in regards to the show, guys, I update it like about 2 to 3 times a week, and I usually try to like update every other day within that, so that way I'm giving constant, you know, episodes to you guys. And also, I am on social media. You can check me out on Twitter and Instagram, which is at Bookshade and then the number 1. So guys, like I always say, remember to embrace the darkness of reading. I'll talk to you guys soon.